According to the American Healthcare Association National Center for Assisted Living, there are currently approximately 800,000 American adults currently residing in assisted living homes, the majority of which are over the age of 85, non-Hispanic, white female residents who do need assistance with one or more daily activities a day. However, the majority of which do not require 24-hour care. Marcia Miller is the CEO and founder of Serenity Adult Family Care Home and Step 1 Training Solutions. She's a healthcare veteran who has seen the healthcare industry change in so many ways. She's insistent upon looking at the positive side of healthcare and helping healthcare professionals get back to what they love doing the most, caring for the people they signed up to serve. She joined me this week to have a comprehensive conversation about the state of healthcare and how she's hoping to provide a different and positive perspective. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Marcia, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to talk to you all about your experience in healthcare. Great to see you this morning, and happy Orlando Saturday.
Yay! Thank you. You as well.
Absolutely. Now, Marcia, tell me, I'm interested to start our conversation by asking you to sort of describe your description of the current state of the American healthcare system, whether you like, whether you don't like, and what do you think people need to know about it?
In a nutshell, it's broken. In a nutshell, it's really a sad, especially here in Florida, it's a very sad commentary. What I see are a lot of investors trying to come into the market to build these amazing, huge buildings. I call them the chandelier buildings. And they don't have enough staffing to support that, and the costs are exorbitant. So the cost of healthcare going down the road for the generation after me, because I'm a boomer, it's going to be ridiculous. And I'm feeling very sad about that. I don't know what the answer is. We have affordable housing as an issue, but now we're going to have a crisis because seniors will not be able to afford long-term care.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I personally know from experience, because I was born with cerebral palsy, is there's a shortage of personal support workers, and certainly that's certainly true with men as well. So I'm wondering your thoughts on the current state of our personal support workers and how they're treated in the field as well.
So I think the pandemic shone a really big glaring light on it. And that's why we have I know there's staffing shortages all across industries, but in our industry, I think they really got hit hard during COVID for the last 2.5 years. And so what we see is the support that we normally would have, individuals wanting to be nurses and CNAs, they're burnt out. They're done. And that's one of the reasons I decided to do my training course was, if you're done in the big communities and you want to get back to doing real patient care, real resident care, and maybe owning your own is the best bet. But the personal support systems, it's just not there. It's just not.
Yeah, and it affects quality of life, doesn't it, for seniors and other people
It
with
certainly does.
disabilities, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And then it's not just finding someone, but it's finding someone that really has a heart for this industry and not just about picking up a paycheck. You know what I mean?
Well, you have to love what you do when you enter this industry, don't you?
You certainly do. You certainly do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also know that you're the executive director and founder of your own residential home care network, which is a community of elder care providers serving seniors in a residential setting. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about it.
Sure. So, when I started, my background to begin with, let me just share that, was not healthcare. It's more business development and marketing. But I was a caregiver of my own family member. And that started my entree into this healthcare space. And what I discovered after year one was that a private home setting is a viable option, right? Everybody doesn't have to be in the big fancy institution. A lot of seniors, if you ask them, well, they want to be in a home-like environment as close to their own as possible. But nobody knew we existed. And there are hundreds of them across our state. And so no one knew we existed. Nobody knew how to, find us. And so I approached some of my colleagues and I said, we need to create some kind of environment where people can find us all in one place. And they liked the idea. And long story short, we came together in 2015 with a couple of sponsors like Vitas Healthcare and such. And we created our own nonprofit so that we could bring this brand awareness to the great work that's being done in the private home communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Streamlining services makes a big difference, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Actually, just educating people on all their options, not just one, because there are different options as you change, decline in your diagnosis, right? So you may start out at home independent, but then you may need a little support where assisted living and adult family care homes can help until you get to the place where, my goodness, you need a skilled environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into the pay equity and closing the gap of making this industry more desirable for people. So how do you think we can create competitive wages and environments that will re-attract people to the healthcare industry?
So that is the dual conundrum that we face. We want to keep the resident rates equitable, obviously, because we're in this business, but we also want to pay our staff fairly. Medicaid dollars are available for us in the industry to get reimbursed for some of the services. But what I've discovered is that two types here in Florida, there are two types of supports that we can have. Adult family care home can provide support. Assisted livings can do the same. But our reimbursements rate through Medicaid is totally different. So for example, the adult family care home providers are reimbursed by Medicaid $12.25 a day. Now, I'm telling you, breakfast costs more than that these days.
It certainly does.
So it's impossible to really give fairer wages if we're not being reimbursed a little bit more aggressively. And so I would love to see that change so that we can have the dollars to give, $15 an hour, because quite frankly, it's not that they don't deserve it. They deserve every penny of it. But where is it going to come from? And if we drive the cost up for the seniors, then that becomes a nightmare because they're on fixed income. They can't afford it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a double conundrum, isn't it?
It is. It is. And it's a battle every day for us in this space. And it's again, when the silver tsunami gets here, and then you have the next wave of seniors who are not as financially savvy as our older generation, what you're going to see is less income coming into this space. Our seniors, our dads and moms did a much better job saving, for example, preparing, have annuities. The next generation, they don't even have 401k. Most people don't even have $1,000 in the bank. And they truly, Kevin, believes Social Security is the retirement strategy. And it is not.
Well, Social Security can only go so far, right?
Is correct. So
Yeah, Marcia, I also wanted to ask you about the importance of social inclusion for seniors because, I do some motivational speaking for individuals with disabilities when it comes to finding them employment. And I also know that it's a source of inclusion and pride for both people with disabilities and seniors when they're connected to a sense of community. So tell me about the importance of social inclusion for seniors and those with disabilities.
absolutely. I mean, it is beyond important because it helps them to stay connected. It helps them to feel young. And I'll just use my community as an example because I run a 5-bed community in my home. And my goodness, I take them out once a week and we do what normal people do. We go to the movies, right? We have individuals that could come in and entertain them. We don't just sit them in front of the TV. We don't just say, okay, Bing. Look, I had one little senior say to me, bingo is not for everybody. We don't want to color books. We're grown. But when I break out the music, they love to dance and they want to dance. And so just making those things available is beyond critical. It is necessary for their mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And you referenced this earlier, so here's my opportunity to ask you about it. I know that you're the creator of a signature course called Split the Beard. You offer soft skills and training, training as a step one to help people more get acclimated with this community. So I'm wondering if you can tell me all about the great course that you offer as well.
Sure, I'm happy to. So I created the course because I realized that I kept getting questions over and over and over about how did you start, Marcy? What was your step one? What did you do? How can I do it? And there's just not enough time in the day to sit on the phone and field all those calls. So I created a video training on demand so that I could pretty much answer every question that you think you're going to ask. I focus on soft skills simply because the hard skills, that's easy. You study, you take a test, you pass it. You get the guidelines about what the state requires for the physical structure. That's a no-brainer. The hard part is actually putting your business plan together, understanding why you want to do this business. So in my Spill the Beans training, I cover everything from business plan development to financial projections to social media, network marketing. We talk about pricing structure. We talk about just about everything that you would think that's kind of nebulous. How to do a building tour, how to talk to people, for God's sake, how to be, how to smile. These are the things that makes a difference in a prospective client, whether they want to share your space, have their loved ones stay in your space. So the course covers all those soft, nebulous skills that are overlooked.
Yeah, and you're also, as you mentioned, a founder of a 5-bed community where you take care of seniors in your own facility there in Orlando. So tell me about operating that facility and the operating challenges and successes that you're seeing in today's healthcare industry.
Sure. So right now, the biggest challenge for all of us across the board is staffing. That's hands down. And because of that, many of us owners are in the trenches. Because I live here with mine, I'm always in the trenches, right? But the delicate balance between doing the administrative side as well as doing the care side. And sleep deprivation, because when they go down to bed, people get up at night, you want to make sure that you provide service to them. So that's the biggest conundrum I face with a lot of my colleagues is the staffing. When staffing is great, it's fantastic because you're giving employment to someone who loves to do what they do. And then you, as a CEO, can focus on scaling your business, maybe even starting a next community, which is what I'm in the process of doing here between now and summer. We should be open. So it gives you that opportunity to think, whereas if you're in the trenches 24/7, it's hard to think.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a role do you think government should play in providing healthcare services, and where do you think that they should be more of a collaborative partner when working with the healthcare community?
So I'm not a big fan of big government. Let me just say that, number one. But if you are going to say that you are going to support the senior care community, then yes, those dollars that are being spent in the wrong direction can be served best if you sit down and maybe do a roundtable and find out what the needs are from the providers themselves before you just make blanket decisions about where dollars should go. They would get an earful. Now, we do have folks that go to Tallahassee here in Florida to, make sure the legislature hears what's going on. But we don't have the lobby pull, if you will, to get what needs to get done. Sad to say.
And tell me, to that point, what are your definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how you would define it on a grander scale?
In our space, again, so interesting that you should ask that, because we're dealing with a generation that's coming out of the 50s, 60s right now. And so in my community and lots of our communities, we still have to deal with race issues, even with seniors, right? And having this conversation with them about how to talk to people, how not to talk to people, and make sure you're kind of including everyone, but kind of navigating those waters when people go off rail. And I'll just give you an example. And this is a very simple example, but it's a real example. Years ago, I had one client and she was in her 80s, almost 90, and she felt it was probably appropriate to keep calling my staff that girl and tell that girl to come, And so we had to have this conversation about her name is, and you may call her and address her by her name, but she's far from being a girl. She's a grandma. But she's coming from a generation where that's how you treated Black people. And so we want to include everyone, but there is still that education piece even today.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you think COVID affected the industry that you work in?
I will say in the institutional settings, COVID was brutal. Because a lot of the larger communities literally had to safeguard their seniors by leaving them in their rooms. And that was not good, particularly when you have cognitive impairment. In the private home communities like myself, way easier, because I didn't lock my residents in my room. They were allowed to roam freely. It's their home. I had a mask on. I had the gloves. I did all of that, right? And so as a result, we remained COVID-free the entire time. I also tested regularly staff, family members, and the team every other week for 2.5 years. I have great families that supported this endeavor because I said, guys, you're out there, they're not. So before you step in my building, you got to make sure you're okay. Everybody supported it and it worked well. The larger communities, it was harder because your seniors don't understand. Why are you on the other side of the glass? Why won't you come in? So COVID really impacted. We lost a lot of lives because of that isolation. As you were talking about socialization, you go from one day talking to your neighbor and the next day, no one. It was brutal.
Yeah. Glad that we're hopefully around in the corner with it. Would you agree with that?
We are definitely more than rounding the corner. I suspended the COVID testing. Yes, my staff does wear masks when they're doing with the residents, but yeah, we're doing a whole lot better now. We are.
Yeah, Marcia, I'm curious to ask you, what do you view as the best part of the job that you do on a regular basis?
The stories that I get to hear, and here's the thing, when I get my residents, they're usually on the higher level, and then I literally watch them decline until they get to where it's time for them to go to glory, so to speak. And two things that I get that brings me joy is, number one, I think of this more as ministry, Kevin, because we may be the only faces they see before they slip into eternity. And it gives us joy to be able to be there for them, to pray and to help with that transition. And the other part about it is, as they're journeying through my community, the many stories that I get to hear. I had one resident many years ago who had met Amelia, what's her name?
Earhart.
Earhart. Yeah. That was like, whoa, really? And she was in her 90s, and, she shared about being, a prisoner of war back then. And to this day, I still keep in touch with her family in the Netherlands. So, yeah, that brings me joy.
Absolutely. And I know that you're originally from Jamaica and living in Orlando. So tell me, what's the best part about living in Orlando, and what do you miss most about Jamaica?
The food.
I figured you might say that.
I mean, obviously we have great restaurants and stuff like that, but you can't just go outside and pick a mango off the tree. At least not in Orlando anyway. So I would say that would be one thing. But living in Orlando, you have a melting pot of all different cultures. And it's just, the weather is not extreme, although, summer it gets hot. It's not extreme cold, and I don't like the cold. I lived in New York for 30 years, so I am so over it. But that's that's the best part for me, getting up every day and knowing it's going to be a sunshiny day.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me, how do you think you would define your passion and purpose for living life?
You know what? And for me, my faith is everything. And if I can just share the love of Christ with one person, with my senior, which I have done, that's it. My job is done.
Absolutely. And tell me, when you look at, my final question for you this morning has to do with your personal and professional legacy and how you may want that to be defined.
My legacy, oh my goodness. I would like to think that I made a difference in someone else's life. I would like to think, and this is a classic example, how we treat people is so very important. And if you're going to show up, make sure you're showing up and not just, and I think this example is best. I had a gentleman, because you don't know what people are going through, right? And this is going back many years. And I remember this young man, he was watching my life. I didn't know he was watching my life. And he said to me years later, he accepted the Lord. He said, you don't know this, but one day I really wanted to go up on the roof of our office building and throw myself off. And I said, what? I would never have known. He said, but I kept watching you every day. And that helped me to make the choice not to. So my legacy is, yes, I want to make sure that my life is something that somebody watches and it's a positive outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. We all live to make a difference in the lives of others, don't we?
Yes, we do. At least that's true.
Absolutely. And Marcia, tell me, if people want to get connected with you and the great work that you do, what's the most efficient way they can do that?
Oh, absolutely. They can go to my website at ceocaregiver.com, or they can email me at ceocaregiver@gmail.com.
Fantastic. Well, Marcia, I have to tell you that I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation about the state of healthcare in America. I want to thank you for the good work that you do to make a difference in the space, and for engaging in conversation with me this morning. It's most appreciated.
Oh my goodness, Kevin, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and thank you so much for inviting me, and I'll be delighted to do it again.